You have tried visualization, you have scripted, you have done the SATs, you have fallen asleep repeating your affirmations, and something is still not moving. Here is what nobody in this space will tell you. The problem is not your technique. The problem is not your belief. The problem is not your frequency. The problem is that you are trying to change your reality while remaining the same self who created it. But Neville Goddard does not teach you to change your circumstances. He teaches you to change the being who inhabits them, not what you see, who is seeing. And this distinction, this exact distinction, is what the Mandukya Upanishad identified thousands of years before Neville ever spoke a word. The ancient Vedic Rishis called it the shift between the waking state and Turiya. Not sleep, not dream, the fourth state. The state where the witness steps outside the vehicle of ordinary consciousness and sees itself seeing. Most practitioners in this space visualize from inside the problem. They are the version of themselves who wants the thing. They feel the wanting, they feel the absence, and they wonder why the subconscious keeps producing more of both. What Neville is actually asking you to do is something far more radical. He is asking you to vacate the self who wants and inhabit the self who already has, not as a mental exercise, as a complete shift in identity. This video is about how to make that shift precisely, deliberately, and tonight. In Vedic cosmology, the self is not a single fixed point. This is not metaphor, this is ontology. The Mandukya Upanishad describes 4 states of consciousness. Most people know 2 of them, waking and deep sleep. The third is the dream state, the svapna. But the fourth, Turiya, is the one that matters for everything we are about to discuss. Turiya is not a state you enter. It is what you already are beneath the other 3. It is pure witnessing awareness. The consciousness that observes the waking self, observes the dreaming self, observes the sleeping self, and is none of them. It is the unchanging observer behind all changing experience. Now hear what Neville says in his lecture series from the 1950s. He says, "I am is the only reality, not I am this body, not I am this person with these problems. I am the naked, undressed awareness prior to any label attached to it." These 2 teachings are not similar. They are identical. The Vedic Rishis and Neville Goddard are pointing at the same mechanism from different angles. The Vedic tradition gives it a cosmological map. Neville gives it an operational instruction. And here is what the operational instruction actually means. If Turiya, if I am, is prior to any specific self, then it is also prior to any specific version of your life. The version of you who has the thing you want is not in some distant future. It is a different configuration of the same I am, a different vehicle parked, as it were, in the same infinite lot. The Bhagavad Gita makes this explicit in chapter 2. Krishna does not tell Arjuna to acquire something new. He tells him to recognize what already is, Nitya, eternal, Shasvata, permanent, Purana, ancient, already existing. The self who has crossed over is not a self you build. It is a self you recognize and step into. This is the philosophical ground. Now let us talk about the mechanism. Here is where most manifestation teachers lose the thread. They teach you to visualize having the outcome, the house, the relationship, the bank balance. And visualization is not wrong, but it is incomplete. Because you can visualize a house for 10,000 hours and never shift the self doing the visualizing. The self who visualizes the house is still the self who does not live in it. And the subconscious records that signature. Not the image of the house, the emotional identity of the person imagining the house from outside. The subconscious does not respond to images. It responds to states of being. This is precisely what Neville means when he says feeling is the secret, not emotion in the ordinary sense. Identity feeling, the felt sense of who you are. Patanjali describes this in the Yoga Sutras as samskara, the grooves cut into consciousness by repeated experience. Every time you visualize from the state of wanting, you cut the groove of wanting deeper. You reinforce the self who does not have. The subconscious, which Neville equates with God, with the infinite creative medium, faithfully produces more of the dominant self-concept it is being fed. So the question is not, how do I visualize better? The question is, how do I actually inhabit a different self? And this is where the ancient practice of identity substitution becomes the most practical tool in the entire tradition. In the tantric schools of Kashmir Shaivism, which predate most Western manifestation frameworks by 1,000 years, there is a practice called pratibha, spontaneous recognition of a deeper self. It is not achieved by effort. It is achieved by a specific quality of relaxed, open attention in which the ordinary self becomes temporarily transparent and a different configuration of consciousness can be felt and inhabited. Neville calls this revision. He calls it wearing the new name. He describes it as dying to the old self and waking as the new. The mechanism is always the same. You do not build the new self. You locate it, you step into it, and you let it merge with the vehicle you currently inhabit, upgrading the deep patterns, the beliefs, the automatic responses from the inside. This is not a metaphor. This is a precise inner movement, and the state in which it is most accessible is the hypnagogic threshold, the 90 seconds before sleep, when the critical faculty dissolves and the subconscious becomes directly available. Neville understood this completely. His SATS technique, state akin to sleep, is specifically designed to access this window. But what most practitioners do in that window is still visualization from the outside. They are watching a movie of themselves succeeding. They are not inside the new self looking out. The difference between watching yourself win and being the version of yourself who has already won, that difference is everything. This is the practice, not a meditation with music and gentle counting, a precise inner movement that you can make in the next 8 hours. As you prepare to sleep tonight, you are going to do one thing differently. Before the imagery, before the affirmation, before anything else, locate the feeling. Not the feeling of having what you want, the feeling of being who would have it. Who would that person be? How do they hold themselves in their own body? What is the quality of their attention when they wake up in the morning? What do they take for granted that you currently hope for? Feel that selfhood, not the outcomes, the identity, the way that version of you simply is. This is what Neville means by living in the end, not imagining the end. Living from the self for whom this is already the beginning of a new ordinary. Now, in the hypnagogic threshold, the precise moment when your body is heavy and your mind is still forming images, step into that self. Not over there, in here. Feel yourself inhabiting it the way you inhabit your own body right now. Feel the new assumptions from the inside, the new automatic expectations, the new ordinary. Hold that state for as long as you can without forcing it. The moment you force it, you have stepped back into the self who is trying. Trying belongs to the wanting self. The new self does not try. It simply is. Let yourself drift towards sleep from inside that identity. The Mandukya Upanishad says that the dream state is where Turiya, the witnessing consciousness, most clearly expresses its creative power. The images that form at the threshold of sleep are not random. They are the subconscious showing you what it has received as instruction. Watch what arises. That content tells you exactly which self the subconscious has accepted. When the images that arise feel natural, ordinary, and belonging to the life you want, not exciting, not miraculous, just normal, you have made the crossing. That ordinariness is the confirmation. Excitement belongs to the self who is surprised by the result. The self who has already made the shift takes it for granted. Here is the payoff. Here is what all of this has been building toward. The ancient Vedic framework does not describe a permanent divided self, one you who wants and another you who has. It describes a single consciousness moving through different configurations. Turiya is not one of the configurations. Turiya is what all configurations are made of. When Neville says the new vehicle upgrades the old one, when he says wear the new name until it is the only name, he is pointing at something the Upanishads made explicit in 4 words. Tattvamasi, that thou art. You are not trying to become someone else. You are recognizing, in the Vedic sense, that the self who already has what you want is equally you. It is a configuration of the same I am. It has always existed in the infinite field of possible expressions of your consciousness. The only thing that changes when manifestation works is which configuration you are identifying with, which vehicle the I am is driving. the subconscious. Neville's God does not evaluate configurations. It does not prefer one over another. It produces with absolute precision the reality that matches the identity it has been given as instruction. When you shift the identity at the deepest level, not the thought, not the affirmation, the identity, the outer world has no choice but to reorganize. This is not positive thinking. This is ontology, the structure of being itself. Do this work at the threshold tonight, not once, every night. Not until it works, because the moment you are doing it until it works, you are still the self who is waiting. Do it as the self who already knows it has worked. As the self for whom this practice is not a technique to acquire something, but a recognition of what already is. Tattvam asi, that thou art. If this unlocked something for you, if you felt the difference between what you have been doing and what Neville is actually pointing at, the next video on this channel goes deeper into the hypnagogic technique and exactly what Neville's SATS practice looks like when it is built on this Vedic foundation rather than visualization alone. That video will change how you approach sleep for the rest of your life. It is linked above.